was about to talk about accidents and injuries and stuff, but I just remembered something else about transport. Two things. Firstly, I remembered my mate Stretch, who I toured with once. It's not his real name. His real name was John. He was very tall. Interestingly, when he was little, he played Fat Sam in the film of Bugsy Malone. You know, one with Jodie Foster and all that. Fat Sam. When I knew him, he's like 6'5". I think he ran a porn film company as well on the side. Anyway, he was touring with me, and he was driving along the motorway, and his car broke down. And he had a really expensive keyboard on the back seat. Car broke down, caught fire. So, quick as a flash, Stretch got the keyboard, the amp, all the other stuff in the car, got it out in the road, so it didn't get damaged by the fire. At which point, it started to rain, poured with rain all over them instead. He also, on one occasion, Stretch was driving along. He was famous for falling asleep whilst driving. On one occasion, I drove alongside him, watched him fall asleep, and had to ring him up on my very big, very old-fashioned mobile phone and say, "Stretch, wake up." And then seeing him sort of wake up and throw his arms in the air and panic wildly. It's hilarious. Another time, he apparently drove off the road, down the embankment, through a hedge, into a field, and didn't wake up until the police went and knocked on his window. So there you go. No, what I was going to say, another thing, don't ever do this. I used to have bottle opener. I've still got a bottle opener on my keyring. Always a useful thing to have. On one occasion, driving late at night on my own, I had a bottle of beer in the car, and I thought, well, I haven't drunk anything. I'm on the way home. It'd be nice to have just a little sip as I drive along. So I thought about this, and no one else on the road. Dual carriageway, and I thought, right, I just need to get the top off. Now, to do that, I need to get the bottle opener off my keyring. I can't get the bottle down, under the steering wheel to the... I know what I'll do. I thought about it carefully. I thought, I'll take the keys out, freewheel, so I'll put it in neutral, take the keys out, take the bottle off, top off the bottle, put the keys back in, carry on. So, waited. No one behind me, no one in front of me, quiet bit of road. Dark, but it's all right, plenty of room. So, got everything ready. Keys out of the ignition. At which point I realised some things. One of the things I realised is when you take the ignition out, the key out of the ignition, the lights don't stay on. Not as bright anyway, they go down to side lights. Well, they did on my old Ford Escort van, which I had at the time. The next thing I realised was that the steering locks. Not to worry, all I've got to do is take the lid off the bottle. So, quite quickly, took the lid off the bottle, put the keys back in, turned it back on, lights came back up, steering started to work again as I was just going across the hard shoulder. That was all right, but it's one of those things you say, with hindsight, I probably wouldn't have done that. Anyway, that's not what I was going to talk about. What I was going to talk about was injuries and stuff. And I have to say, touch wood, I've had quite a lucky life. Considering what I do and what I've done for a living, I haven't broken many things, touch wood. Broke a little finger, fallen through a toilet door, and dislocated it as well, but that's okay. And I chipped a bit of bone off my elbow. Now that was from going up and down ladders in theatres over and over again over the years, lots and lots of times. Funnily enough, when I was doing the thing, jumping off the loading gallery in a pyjama game to make all the things fly up, I was really careful and kept my elbows in. But over a period of time, I'd bashed it, so I had to have an operation. I was lucky. When I was at the Victoria Palace, they paid for me to be in Bupa, which was nice of them. I went for this operation and they had to grind the bone off. Sounds worse than it was. It was all right. They did that. Then I had to have it in a thing, and I had to be really, really careful for a while. I had to go back for a checkup, I think, 2 or 3 weeks later. And I hadn't been quite as good as I should have been on the old rest front. What I'd actually been doing in between the operation and going back for the checkup, I'd been replacing the steel wires on the counterweight system on a couple of bars in the theatre, which would involve climbing into the counterweight system and getting very, very oily. So I had to get Lisa to put new bandages on because the ones I'd got on were very oily and would have given the game away. Anyway, I went back for my checkup, and I had to go on my bicycle because the car had blown up or something. Anyway, went on my fold-up bike. It wasn't my fold-up bike, it was my sister's old fold-up bike from when we were children, which wasn't really big enough for me. Anyway, I cycled along to the old Nuffield Hospital, saw the specialist. He said, "Oh yeah, progress good, you've got good mobility in your elbow." I'm impressed with that. It looks a little bit inflamed, as if you might have been overusing it. I'll be very, very careful, very careful. Left, got on my bicycle, cycling out of the Nuffield Hospital, past the specialist's office. I went over a speed bump on my bicycle, at which point the handlebars fell off and the bike crashed outside his window. I had to put the bike back together and pedal off. That didn't go well. On another occasion, I was working in the grid. My friend Lee was just below the grid, so 60 feet up in the air. He had to abseil up there. We were doing something involved with someone being underneath and someone being on top. I was on top of the grid, doing stuff, and it inadvertently hit my head on a sharp piece of metal and started to bleed profusely. And as I was explaining to Lee below me, saying, "Lee, I'm really sorry, I've cut my head open," he said, "Well, yeah, I know, because you're bleeding on me." And I was bleeding. I was indeed bleeding all over him. So what I had to do was take my t-shirt over my head, wrap it like a turban on my head, so we could finish what we're doing without me pouring blood all over Lee. Then I had to go to the hospital and have it stitched up. And the annoying thing was, you see, in those days didn't have camera phones, and I wanted to see what it's like. So I, by lucky chance, I think Blair, for some reason, was at my house in London. Anyway, I'm sure it was Blair. We had an old video camera, so I got him to video my head so I could then watch it on telly and see what was wrong with it. Apart from that, I think I've been really quite lucky. There you go.